He is facing $30 billion in liability costs stemming from wildfires allegedly caused by its equipment. Well, now it plans to file for bankruptcy, and making matters worse, PG&E's CEO suddenly resigned. Shares of the utility plunging today, down 52%, losing half their value. While elsewhere on Wall Street, worries about a global economic slowdown sent the Dow 86 points lower, the Nasdaq down 65. Oil down by $1 a barrel on those same worries. After Johnson & Johnson became the latest drug maker to hike prices on dozens of medications last week, House Democrats have launched an investigation into drug pricing. Volkswagen plans to create 1,000 jobs at a plant in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where it'll build electric engine autos. Meantime, Chinese automaker GAC Motor pushing back plans to become the first Chinese brand sold here in the States until next year. Tom Busby, CNBC.
Indeed knows finding the right hire takes time away from your business.
Hiring a qualified data engineer felt like a second job.
More job seekers use Indeed than any other site, so there's no better place to find someone with the skills you're looking for.
I needed someone with a master's in computer science and database experience.
Plus, Indeed screener questions help you find your shortlist fast.
Now I'm back to having just one job.
Get a $50 credit to give your first job posting premium placement at Indeed.com/credit. Terms, conditions, quality standards, and usage limits apply. Additional terms online.
24/7, 365. You're up and at 'em every day, so you don't want something like Medicare Part D to slow you down. At Walgreens, we'll take care of your Medicare Part D prescriptions, saving you time and money. Make the switch to Walgreens today and get more by earning 100 balance reward points and save up to $5 on each Medicare Part D prescription when Walgreens is your preferred pharmacy. Walgreens, trusted since 1901. Prescription savings applies to Tier 1 generics when you fill at a preferred versus a non-preferred pharmacy on select plans. Points can't be earned in New York, New Jersey, or Arkansas. Other restrictions and limitations apply.
How would you feel if you had to make a choice between buying food or spending your fixed income on life-saving medicine? No one should make that trade-off, but many low-income seniors are forced into difficult decisions like this every day. Smiles for Seniors Foundation provides energy assistance and safety net services to struggling low-income seniors in the Inland Empire. They provide one-time assistance to seniors to meet specific financial needs. They've helped with food, housing, utility payments, minor home and auto repairs, along with life-saving prescriptions or medical equipment. A nonprofit foundation funded entirely by donations from local organizations. Smiles for Seniors receives no funding from the state or federal government. They are funded by local businesses and individuals like you with big hearts and willing wallets. You can find more information or to donate to Smile for Seniors at 909-790-6671. That's 909-790-6671, or visit smilesforseniorsfoundation.org. That's smilesforseniorsfoundation.org.
Ivanka Trump could be in line for a new high-profile position.
The president's daughter is reportedly on the list of candidates submitted to the Treasury Department as a possibility to fill the position of president of the World Bank. Current President Jim Yong Kim is resigning to take a spot with a Wall Street equity firm. The list is also said to include former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley and Mark Green, the head of the U.S. Agency for International Development. While the nominee submitted by the United States has traditionally gotten the job, other international candidates may also be considered this time. Bill Zempfer, NBC News Radio.
Illinois is denying R. Kelly a permit for an upcoming concert as outrage over sexual abuse allegations grows. The State Department of Agriculture gave the official reason behind the denial as security concerns. The concert was supposed to be held April 6th at the State Fairgrounds in Springfield.
On the road again.
Willie Nelson is a music legend, and the Stars came out this weekend to prove that and pay their respects. Dozens of performers took to the stage at Bridgestone Arena in Nashville Saturday for Willie, Life and Songs of an American Outlaw, a Willie Nelson all-star concert celebration. Nelson spoke to Al Roker from NBC's Today Show about his career.
What do you want your legacy to be?
If the people got their money's worth.
Nothing more than that. It's pretty much a good thing.
It's a good thing to know that they come to the audience, they heard what they liked, and they went home happy.
Everyone from Emmylou Harris to George Strait to Margot Price and Chris Christopherson joined in the weekend fun, covering Nelson's half-century of hits. The concert will be aired on A&E later this year. The most liked Instagram post ever is an egg. A photograph of an egg has moved past reality TV star Kylie Jenner as the most liked post ever on the social media platform. The picture now has almost 25 million likes, way ahead of Jenner's previous record of 18 million for the post announcing the birth of her daughter Stormy last year. The record-breaking egg photo was posted January 4th. Tom Roberts, NBC News Radio.
You're on board KCAA's Now, it's For the People with Judge Herb Dodell.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is pouring outside. You know, you said something like, it's raining cats and dogs?
Yes.
I know, I stepped in a poodle.
Oh!
In our effort to do something different every week so that the listeners are not bored, got a very exciting guest today. We're going to talk with Richard Chamberlain.
Oh, great.
Was once regarded as one of the big-time Hollywood stars. And
he was.
Looking at his, I went on Google, you know, just to be sure. We've been friends for more than 30 years. So I saw him last week, and I said, you know, I'd like to do my show. You know, we were in Hawaii last week, and we went up, had lunch.
Right.
And so he says, sure, why not? What do you want me to ask? What do you want me to talk about? I said, I don't know. Let's see what happens. So I don't know what's going to happen. We've got a great subject matter to discuss.
He's been in a lot of great movies. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all time was Towering Inferno. With Steve McQueen and Paul Newman, and O.J. was in it, and Richard Chamberlain played the bad guy. You know, he was the one who built the building and the building codes in the building. William Holden, Faye Dunaway.
Great cast.
I mean, great cast. Great cast. Yeah. And,
well, you know, I can tell you a good Steve McQueen story.
Okay. I've got one too.
Okay. Well, you know, a little background for me. I started as an entertainment lawyer. When I got out of law school, I started to work for ABC as inside counsel, you know, one of the many, writing contracts and things.
Right.
Then I came out to California and became involved in a television production company first as resident counsel and then as business affairs director. That was 4-Star Television, and we did things like Big Valley and shows like that. And I met some interesting people those days, actually. And then I got a big break. I got a phone call from a friend of mine I had gone to law school with. And by then I was in the district attorney's office, and he called me from London, say he'd been offered the number 2 job at Warner's, but he didn't want to come to California. He loved living in London. He said, would I be interested? I said, you know, why would I not be interested? You know, I was making very little money as DA. They didn't pay us very much, and I was assigned to places like West Covina, so I was spending all that time on the road, the gasoline, and they don't give you any money back. So I said, sure, absolutely. I went, I interviewed, I ended up in front of the board there, I got the job. So I became director of business affairs in my office, which was on the 2nd floor, with the, you know, the management team. Right next door to me was Steve McQueen.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
And we had a bathroom in between our 2 offices that we shared.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, there's a lock on a door on each side, right?
Right.
So he would go in and he would lock the door on my side so I couldn't get in when he was using it. And it had a shower and all of that kind of stuff. And so when I wanted to go in, I couldn't get in. The door was locked.
Oh, he'd keep it. He just wouldn't.
He just didn't unlock the other side.
Unlock your side.
Right. So the first couple times I went in there, you know, and I was being polite.
Did you say Mr. McQueen or did you say Steve? What'd you call him?
You know, I don't think I called him Mr. McQueen for sure.
Okay, all right. Hey, you.
No, I mean, these were people I was doing business with.
No, I did.
His management and everything else.
Right.
And so when it continued, I went, and what do you think I did? I locked the door from my side.
So he
couldn't get in.
Oh, my God.
You know, I was in my 20s. You know, I was an aggressive, aggressive young. I wasn't there as a lawyer. I was actually I supervised the legal department as part of my job as basically an administrator, and that was my experience with Steve McQueen.
Did he come over and say, "Hey, why didn't you unlock the door?" Did he come by, or did he have somebody else?
We had a mediator actually.
Oh, did you have a mediator over the bathroom?
Robert Relier was the guy's name. God. He was the producer. In fact, you know the car that was in Bullet, the movie Bullet?
Oh yeah, I love that car.
That was my car.
Really?
Yeah, they wrecked my car. They gave me another car, but that was my car. It was a little Mustang.
Yeah, it was hot, man.
A little red Mustang.
Love that movie. That was a great movie.
There's a great story about that, too. You know, Robert Vaughn was one of the co-stars of that movie.
Yeah, he was.
And the way things work in negotiations in that business at that time, maybe a little bit different now, is, you know, credits were a big, big deal. More so than the money. They wanted the credits above the title, the locations, before, it was all part of the negotiation.
Really?
So there I am negotiating the deal with Robert Vaughn's agent, was it William Morris, and he wanted credit the same size and type as McQueen's. And of course, McQueen didn't want that.
No.
Because this was, it's a very egotistical oriented business. I mean, beyond egotistical.
Plus, Steve McQueen was the main star in it.
So, meanwhile, they're shooting the show in the meantime, and we're still negotiating, right, with no written contract. So we're getting closer to the end of the show, get into the picture.
The shoot, yeah.
And I said to his representative, I said, you know what, we're not even giving him credit at all. I'm going to give him in the crawl. The crawl is what you see at the end of every show.
Yeah.
The thing on the screen. Some of them are so fast you can't read the names.
Right, yeah.
I mean, to me, that's absurd.
Yeah.
If I was ever to negotiate something, I'd say, I want to make sure that the crawl is enough time people could read my name. But anyway, I had him pretty good by then because the movie was almost over. And he had a couple of days left. He had no leverage.
Right. He had already got paid, too, I'm sure.
I'm sure but most of the time, the way it worked, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that today, as a matter of fact. Most of the time, you give so much up front, and you pay by every period of time, whatever's negotiated.
Mm-hmm.
And there's all kinds of provisions in these agreements. One of them is called force majeure. Give a little explanation, because I try really hard in the show to talk about different things every week. So I'm going to talk about the law and showbiz in a minute. But the fact of the matter is there's lots of little hooks, and there used to be something called a morals clause. If anybody did something that we considered to be immoral, we being the studio, you could terminate the contract.
I'm sure they still have that. I'm sure they still have that.
They probably have it, but to some degree, because then you get into real arguments as to what's moral and what's immoral.
Well,
but the bottom line was,
look what happened to Kevin Spacey in House of Cards. I mean, he got busted, for
Kevin Spacey's probably never going to work again.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think anybody will touch him.
Really? How about Matt Lauer and Charlie Rose?
They'll come back in some form or another. Look, the guy Williams on MNSPC, whatever they called.
Oh, Brian Williams.
SPCA,
yeah.
Whatever it was. I mean, they kicked him out because he had said something that was untrue.
Yeah, but he didn't. But we're talking about sexual assault.
That's true.
They're a little different than lying about something.
I don't see Harvey Weinstein making any new movies either.
You never know.
You know what? Maybe he could sign up with Kevin Spacey.
Maybe him, Spacey, Lauer,
He
Charlie
get a group
Rose.
Together. An all-star cast.
Yeah, get them all together. Les Moonves. Get them all together.
A big time show with all of those people. What did Hillary Clinton said something about the people supported President Trump were deplorables? I guess you could say that.
Yeah.
Look at that crowd.
You can make the whole movie called The Deplorables.
Well, that's a whole crowd.
I know. Have Bill Cosby star in it.
But that was going on, and I can tell you from my role at the studio, one of the things that I did was go for all the expense accounts. Because I needed to approve or disapprove whatever these people were spending. And they were abusive. Some of these people were abusive.
I'm sure.
I can always tell you the Kirk Douglas story.
Well, Kirk Douglas was abusive?
No, he wasn't abusive. He was not abusive.
He's 100 years old, Judge.
But he won't remember the story.
Oh, God.
But what happened was, I guess we would do personal stories today.
Sure.
What happened was we were doing a picture in the desert called There Was a Crooked Man, which was basically indicative of who the people were in the business, but that was called There Was a Crooked Man. And I got a call from the producer, who was a good friend of mine, still a friend of mine, and said that he didn't want to work because he wanted us to build a fence and put a fountain outside of his trailer because he didn't want to have to get up and look out the window and see desolation.
Oh, my God.
And it was going to cost like, $20,000, $30,000 to do the deal. So I said, we're not going to spend for that. So he said, well, you know what? I'm not going to work. We'll talk about that right after the break.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what happened.
Great story.
That is a great story. These are great stories. All right, it is Judge Herb Dodell. Get his book, From the Trench to the Bench, still available on Amazon.com. And if you want to ask the judge a question, ask Judge Herb at gmail.com. We'll be back with Judge right after this.
AM KCAA.
Herb Dodell is a lawyer and a judge for the people. Having served as a Superior Court judge, presiding over more than 9,000 cases, he has witnessed firsthand how complicated and corrupt the legal system can be. His goal is to show how things really work in the legal system so that people can navigate the legal system in the best way for them. Many people often feel marginalized by the legal system and are uninformed about how to proceed when unfortunate circumstances arise in their life. Judge Herb will pull back the curtain, lift the veil, so people can truly understand their rights, have access to top legal personnel that they can trust, and have knowledge about how things work so they can make better choices. Judge Herb isn't just knowledgeable. His integrity and spiritual values are truly what make him different. He cares about democratizing access and information for all and desires to turn on the light so the people, you, can benefit. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, so they're panicking down there in the desert because he says, I'm not going to work.
Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, he says, I'm not going to work. It's going to cost you $50,000 a day for me not to work. And putting aside the contractual issues and what could have ended up, whatever, I went down there. I drove down there in my little red Mustang.
Where was this at exactly? In the desert?
It was actually in Joshua Tree.
Joshua Tree, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I go down there, and he tells me the same thing. He says, I'm going to have headaches. I said, okay, I got it. I paid for it.
You paid for it?
Well, not me personally. I approved it, and we built them a little thing with a fountain and the whole deal.
What year was this?
This is in the late 60s.
Okay.
So I come back to the studio, and every now and again I used to take a walk when I wasn't overly busy. You know, I'd walk on a set or just to schmooze.
Right.
And so I'm sitting in the trailer. This guy Sid Ganis, who was then producing the picture, and he walks in, Douglas, and he says, you're the business affairs guy, right? I said, yeah. He says, you guys are all such big crooks and everything, and you run all those numbers up and you charge, because we had a formula. We took up everything known to man as an expense before there was a distribution of profits. Nobody made any money on movies that I was involved in because we always found expenses. We buried everything off, and that's the way it worked.
Right, I get it.
You know, that's why the only people who had a gross deal was John Wayne. John Wayne had a gross deal. He didn't get a percentage of the net profits. He got a percent of the gross.
Wow, right.
10% of the off the top. They knew, you know, because Michael Wayne, John Wayne's son, was fairly smart, and we negotiated that special deal for him. So he says, you're such a crook and and you doing all this and you're stealing money.
Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, he's telling me this. I said, let me remind you about a guy who says he wanted a fountain, and guess who paid for it? You did. So the bottom line was showbiz was up and down. And it's kind of interesting because I'm going to talk to Richard Chamberlain about what showbiz was like then versus what it's like now. But I do want to touch some legal issues. Because today, whether you're a writer, a director, an actor, whatever it is, people have agents and managers. And a lot of people say to me, what's the difference between an agent and a manager?
Yeah, because, you know, especially the award season going on, and, you know, the Golden Globes, the Critics Awards, or last night, and, of course, the
Big
Oscars,
difference.
the SAGs. But they thank everybody. They got like, I want to thank my team. Tell us about this team stuff. I don't know anything.
Well, see, an agent seeks employment, procures employment, and they're regulated by the code in California, and they're limited to the amount of money that they could charge as a percentage, as a commission.
Oh, so there's a certain commission.
It's and they're negotiable, but not too much. Most of the time, that's a standard.
What is it, 15, 20%?
No, 10.
10. Oh, 10%. That's all they get is 10%?
They were getting 10%.
Okay.
Pretty standard.
Okay.
Now, they also have a manager. A manager's different.
Can the manager be the agent too, or do they have to?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Well, I guess you could if you were both, but the chances are, the manager is the person who guides your career. That's who gets you shows to go to, gets publicity.
They pitch him the shows and
tell you what to wear,
Okay.
and all kinds of personal kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But the manager is not allowed, by law, not allowed to procure employment. If they procure employment, they lose everything.
So the agent's
fees.
the only one can do that.
Agent is the only one that can procure employment.
Which means book them for a show or TV movie. Or,
Any kind of employment.
Okay.
And they get a percentage of the residuals, which means when the show gets run more than one time.
That's interesting.
You get more and more and more. Some people have lived off their residuals.
Right.
We had a friend. We were friends with Cindy Williams, who was
Laverne and Shirley.
Laverne and Shirley. Our kids went to school together, and I'm sure she's collecting a check every month. That show's syndicated. Syndicated means that they take the show and they run it in different markets. Every market is different.
Yeah, well, they still run MASH, Andy Griffith Show,
absolutely.
All in the Family.
Absolutely.
Those All in the Family shows.
But you won't be seeing Bill Cosby. He used to be a big moneymaker.
Oh, yeah.
That show, you won't see that show ever again. I don't think you'll ever see that show again.
You never say never, Judge.
That's true, but the residuals are where the money really is.
Right.
Is it over and over and over? It's not the same with television use on movies, but the deal that you make with the artist, because that's what I did. I used to make deals with, and then I became independent when I left the studio, and I did it on the other side. I was representing the artist. One of the hardest part of doing these deals on both sides was the negotiations as to terms. And the more star power you had, the better you did.
Well, that makes sense.
The better the negotiation was for you. But I want to tell another story as to what goes on, how dishonest the business is, and it really is.
Of course it is.
We had a movie that was going to star Kirk Douglas, as a matter of fact, and the female lead was going to be Faye Dunaway.
I love her.
But she was already committed, to something else. So the agent said, "I'll tell you what." I remember the conversation. He said, "I'll tell you what. I'll get Dunaway for you, but you have to use such and such and such and such in the film."
Might get other co-stars.
One of their own people.
Right.
They said, "You want her? You got to take him."
Mm-hmm.
And
sort of like a trade.
Yeah, but even though there was already a deal with that other production company, reality was reality, and the head of the studio said, "Make the deal." We did, and the lawsuit followed.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I was even a witness in that lawsuit because they already had an agreement, and this guy interfered. This was a big time agent, one of the major agents, and he had a lot of clout. And he wasn't really dealing with me. He was dealing with the boss.
Right.
And the boss would call me. We had a little phone that was just between the offices, and the phone would ring, and I'd pick it up, and he'd say, "Make the deal." So I just did what I was supposed to do. I made the deal, and then that other producer who lost his picture because he lost his star sued.
I don't blame him.
And then I got a subpoena.
So who won?
I think they settled it.
I'm sure they did.
Most cases settle.
Yeah.
Just so you know, anybody who talks about litigation, and the reason we're talking about agents and managers or whatever, it's ripe for arbitrations or litigations. I had a case where the manager had a contract, did not seek employment, dealt with an agent and everything else, and then when it came time to get paid, the artist, the actor, said, you got jobs for me, and therefore I'm not paying you. And
his own manager?
Well, basically, he made another deal with some other manager as he hit it. Because what happens in that business is the startups work for these people that are just trying to get from day to day, right?
Right. These managers.
And then they hit.
Right.
And this guy's a star, this gal's a star.
Also.
And all of a sudden, they don't want to know who you are. Who are you?
Right.
And so they say.
After you help their career and get them.
Absolutely. And this manager really did help this kid.
Yeah.
She really did help him a lot. And he turned around and he basically said, "I'm not paying you. I'm not going to tell you that."
Initials?
No, nothing. But the case did settle.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it settled because what she was doing, we argued, was not procuring employment. It was incidental to the employment. He had an agent, and yada, yada, yada. But that's what happens in this situation. Showbiz is a very, very difficult
It's a
business.
seedy business.
And you know what the biggest problem is? Ego.
Of course.
These people have such phenomenal. In fact, I tell the story all the time. When I left the studio, when I was at the studio, everybody stopped by. You know, the phone would ring all day. Everybody was always there because you could say yes. And you couldn't make your movie unless you got past, basically me.
Right.
And so everybody wanted to be my friend.
Of course.
And I'd get invited every place. I never picked up a check. Nothing. Everybody was taking care of me. The day I left the studio, the phone stopped ringing. If I'd run into somebody that would cross the street, they wouldn't have to stop and talk to me.
Wow.
It's a true story. I remember, never forget it. I had said yes to this guy. He made his movie. When I left the studio and I was walking on Sunset Boulevard, I was walking like eastbound. I saw him coming westbound. He saw me. He stopped. He crossed the street to the other side of Sunset and kept on walking so he wouldn't have to stop to talk to me. It's a total ego-oriented business. But the nice thing is, people like Chamberlain, who you're going to talk to in a couple of minutes, hopefully he's still there, was never like that.
Yeah.
Always a gentleman and a really decent spiritual guy that was always interested in other people and was never too busy to do something nice for somebody.
Well, when I used to do the interviews for the Howard Stern show, red carpet interviews, I did probably went to 400 or 500 events. The stars always had somebody walking them down, a publicist, manager, I don't know who the hell it was. But, you would just see that when I started asking those crazy questions, you could just see the person, the publicist or the manager or whatever, just like get enraged, you know what I mean, with some of the questions I was asking for the Stern show. The stars would ask, the A celebrities got it. The A and B celebrities got it and loved it because they weren't asked the same stupid question over and over again, but you would just see them just like freaking out, man. Because they've got to kiss this guy or her butt, and that's what they do. That's what they're. It's a weird dynamic.
The part you didn't read about was the things that were going on in the casting couches.
Yeah.
The people that were the producers. You wanted a job, you wanted a role.
Of course.
You laid down. That was exactly the way it worked. And nobody said anything because that was the way it worked.
Well, that's why they called it the casting couch, and they made a big joke out of it.
That's exactly right. And I knew it because I saw it basically happening. I wasn't standing in the room watching it go down, but the fact was...
You weren't a voyeur?
I wasn't a voyeur. I was on the second floor. And the reality is that it went on and went on and went on, and it's only because of the Me Too movement now and what happened that these people were even caught or even exposed.
Yeah.
Exposed is probably a bad word. But
maybe not, actually.
Well, you know what? The stories, you hear the stories. Some of these people are a little on the how would I call it?
Freaky side.
Freaky side. That's it. A lot of them are on the freaky side.
They are, man. They're weird.
And there's another thing. Peter Sellers was doing a picture for us too, and I went down to the set, and the red light was flashing. In other words, don't come in.
Right.
Right. But I never paid attention to that, being as arrogant as I was. I walked right in anyway. I'm sitting down here, I'm watching them shooting the show. And he comes over and he says to the producer, "Get him out of here." So I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, so I left, right?
Uh-huh.
About 3-4 days later, I got the biggest basket of fruit and flowers from this guy. He found out what my position was at the time, and
so they had to kiss your butt.
He didn't know. He didn't know. He saw some guy walking in with a suit on.
Right. Yeah.
I wore suits those days. Okay, we're going to call Richard right during the break.
All right, cool. It is For the People, Judge Herb Dodell, and we'll be back hopefully with Richard Chamberlain, right?
I hope so.
All right, I'm going to call him right now. All right.
NBC Talk Talk Radio, 1050 AM, KCAA.
In his book, From the Trench to the Bench, Judge Herb Dodell demystifies the legal system, including both civil and criminal, the lawyers, the judges, and the process. As a judge, former deputy district attorney, and criminal defense attorney, he knows the legal system. He has the inside information that you need to pick a lawyer, and he's here to give it to you. No matter what you're facing that makes you think you may need a lawyer, Judge Herb will shed valuable light on your situation and reveal your best options and many secrets of how the judicial system actually works. To find out more about how the legal system really works, you can get your copy of Judge Herb Dodell's eye-opening book, From the Trench to the Bench, at Amazon.com.
Okay, good afternoon, Richard. Are you there?
Hi, Herb. How you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, I realize I know you about 30 years. Did you know that?
Well, 30 years goes by like 30 minutes these days. Yeah, 30 years. Wow, that's amazing.
Because I was thinking about when you came to my house, actually, with Beverly. So it goes a long way. Anyway, I actually went and took a look at your bio. I didn't know some of these fabulous things that you did. You know, you were voted, I think, number 7 among the most popular actors of your time. And that's no kidding. Yeah, you were. And I was a big fan of yours with Dr. Kildare. I know. I even saw the Thornboards and said, "What a nice location." Then I found out I was in Simi Valley. You know.
Yes.
Anyway, I thought we would just chat about what things were like in the day. You know, when we were in the day, and see how things have developed since then to where we are now. I know you like to paint and everything, but what was it like being who you were in the day when movie stars were treated a lot differently than they're treated today? What was it like?
Well, first of all, I started working very, very quickly after college in the Army. I was extremely lucky. And when Dr. Kildare happened, it was just the fulfillment of all my dreams. All I had ever wanted was to be an actor. And when I was a little kid, I didn't like school, and what I really loved to do as a kid was go to the movies. And that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be up on that screen. and the dream came true. It was really miraculous.
You didn't like being a sergeant?
I was efficient in the Army, but not the happiest soldier. I came out a sergeant, actually, which is amazing in 2 years.
Well, you know, but you exemplified yourself beyond the military by playing all these great military roles. And you had a chance to take care of the great opportunity. I like to watch the Alan Quatermain movies, the ones that you did in Africa. They were kind of interesting.
Well, they were sort of fun. The first one, especially the King Solomon's Mines, I thought was really quite funny and sort of moderately well done. But we were in Zimbabwe for almost a year doing both those movies, and it was an amazing experience being in Africa all that time.
Well, what impressed me a lot, other than knowing who you are, is that you had a really diverse career. Film and television, live, theater. You won a number of awards for your acting talents and your ability to sing. You've done a remarkable variety of things, including the 3 Musketeers, the 4 Musketeers. Were they going to do a 5 Musketeers, whatever it was? I saw you did some great stuff. The Thornbirds was just beautifully set. I mean, the scenery was really, really nice, and you were terrific in that. And Shogun, you ended up doing
Shogun.
Japan. I mean,
that was awesome.
You really, over your career, you really have done a lot of different things, and that's really,
that's the fun of it, to do as many different kinds of things as possible. When I was in college, we had a wonderful theater director, and I think I got from her the fact that variety is the spice of life as an actor. And I was lucky enough to get a lot of variety. It's really been wonderful.
Towering Inferno is one of Gary's favorite movies.
Yeah, I love that movie where you sort of play the villain there, Mr. Chamberlain, a little
bit. Which one are we talking about?
Towering Inferno. Yeah, Towering Inferno.
Oh, I was a real bastard in that. I was a very bad guy, and I actually got punched in the stomach by William Holden, and I deserved it.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Love that.
But there's what really impressed me was the tremendous diversity.
Yeah.
You've done so many different things. I actually went to see you when you were in My Fair Lady.
Oh, no kidding!
Weren't you Henry Higgins?
Oh my God, that's maybe the greatest musical ever written. I think it's just it was wonderful. Every night, every performance was a thrill.
Yeah, like from Caesar to Brutus to My Fair Lady. I mean, talk about diversity.
Yes.
So what you doing now that you're painting and doing other things? What's on your agenda?
Well, I'm painting a bit. I'm traveling a lot. Last year, my God, I never got off a plane. It was just one thing after another. But and I actually did a little part in a film last year. I thought I was retired. But I did one scene in a film called Echoes of the Past, which was a Greek film. We shot in Athens. It was amazing. I had a scene with Max von Sydow, which was thrilling.
Great actor.
Yeah, great. Oh, absolutely great.
So you want to do another role? I have a script that I've been trying to sell for many years. No, I'm only kidding. I'm only kidding. But you got any plans?
No. To work? No. A friend of mine, Martin Ribet, has written a wonderful musical, and we did a couple of workshops in New York very recently, and the reception was terrific. So if anything happens with that, I might do that. But apart from that, I don't have any.
Actually, Shelley and I have listened to the CD because Martin gave it to us.
Yes. Yes.
And we've listened to it. It's got a wonderful Broadway sound to it. It's almost like Beauty and the Beast. It's got that nice.
Oh, good.
I loved it. In fact, Shelley keeps playing it over and over again. In fact, I even.
Oh, that's great.
I even texted Martin to tell him we think it's great. I want to be there for the opening night. It's a Broadway show.
Me too.
What's the name so we can get it a little promotion?
It's called Unlikely Allies. And it's about the American Revolution, but not like Hamilton. It takes place mostly in France. You know, we never would have won our independence without the help of the French. And the musical is about getting the French to help us in that fight.
That's interesting.
Nice music.
That's cool.
Well, Martin writes good stuff.
Hey, Mr. Chamberlain, can I ask you one question? What would you tell somebody, because, we're in Hollywood and there's a lot of people that want to be actors and actresses and things like that. What would be the one bit of advice that you would tell somebody that was trying to break into being an actor or an actress?
Well, it's the old cliche. If you can imagine doing anything else, do something else. But if you can't imagine doing anything else, then give it a try. It's a real gamble. Very few members of the actors' unions and things are actually working. So it's a gamble, but it can also be very, very thrilling and fulfilling. So if you can't do anything else or don't want to do anything else, then go ahead and give it a go.
What was your favorite role? I don't know, you did so many, but what was your favorite one if you had to go back retrospectively and say to yourself, I love that one the best? Which one would it have been?
I think Shogun, as a television project, I'm probably most proud of Shogun. I think it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful production. And from a gorgeous, wonderful book by Clabel, and it was beautiful to look at and thrilling to see. As an acting experience, I think my favorite part was Thomas Mendip in a play called The Lady's Not for Burning, written by Christopher Fry. It's a play that's not done anymore, but we did it both in Chichester, England, and then again for PBS with Eileen Atkins, interestingly enough, playing the lady. And that was one of my favorite parts ever. It's just a brilliant play.
Did you prefer the theater, TV, or movies?
I like it all. I maybe feel most at home on the stage, but when you're acting in a film, when it's really cooking, it's almost as thrilling as being on stage. So I like it all. The problem with series television is it's shot so fast. The miniseries were wonderful because you had the luxury of time and production money and all that sort of thing. So I think the perfect medium for me was actually the miniseries.
Was that like Thornbirds?
Thornbirds, Shogun, Wallenberg, Centennial, all of those.
So going back, you glad you did it?
Boy, am I glad I did it. Oh, yes.
Yes.
No, you could have been something else. You could have been a plumber.
Oh, please. A plumber, an actor? Come on.
I was so fortunate. I started working so quickly and stayed working for, 55 years, something like that. It was just miraculous.
If you had to do it all over again, what would you have changed? This is like the Barbara Walters question.
It sounds like it.
Like Barbara Walters.
I would have changed. Well, I don't know. Maybe I would have learned a little faster, but it was a very lengthy learning experience, really, about how to act and how to perform and how to live and all that sort of thing. I'm not sure I would change anything.
Yeah. Why? I mean, Mr. Chamberlain, you had a great career. I mean, come on. I mean,
it was fabulous.
That's unbelievable.
It was really fabulous. I was so lucky. Yeah. I was really amazingly fortunate.
Well, after Dr. Kildare, did you think about going to medical school?
No, I have the brains for it, to tell the truth. I have the brains to learn my lines and hit my marks, but I don't think I could. I don't think I could cut into somebody's abdomen and pull out their appendix.
Well, I guess people get involved in things, and sometimes they adopt it because it was so enjoyable and so pleasurable. But I remember you doing those shows. You were great.
Yes.
You really,
thank you.
really played the part really well. I could believe you could cut into the abdomen.
He played every part.
Well, and I actually had the thrill of working with Raymond Massey, who was so wonderful to me. He was Dr. Gillespie in the Dr. Kildare show.
Yeah.
And we worked together week after week for 5 years, and he was just wonderful to me. Absolutely. Like another father. He was great.
Of all the people that you worked with, these are really Barbara Walters questions kind of thing. Of all the people you worked with, did you have a favorite beside Raymond Massey?
Oh, gosh. Let me think. Dixie Carter.
Dixie Carter.
We did a play. Yeah, we did a play called Fathers and Sons, and I was Wild Bill Hickok, and she was Calamity Jane, and it was so fun working with her, and we had this amazing chemistry. She was great, but so many people. Eileen Atkins was thrilling to work with. These are all people you're maybe too young to remember.
Well, I was thinking about that as I was driving down today. I was saying to myself, I, of course, have known of you for many years, but the people that are millennials, they don't know who Yogi Berra was, they know who you were.
Yes, they don't know.
So those people are saying, who's this guy?
Who's Paul Newman?
Yeah,
that's right. You know what? They probably would say that. Who?
They do.
They absolutely do. Calvin Coolidge is no longer a favorite. When you look back at it, there are people who are baby boomers who do know you and do know your history and do know how credible you were. And for those people, that's the reason, believe it or not, that's the reason I wanted to have you on the show today. Because there are a lot of people.
Oh, that's nice.
You remember when I was sitting in Torrance in small claims court as the judge there, my clerk was absolutely wild over you. And you gave me a copy of your book, which you can plug right now. Shattered Love, is it?
Shattered Love, yeah.
And she insisted that I get an autograph, and you were so kind. saw me and you gave me the autograph, and I gave it to her. And when I told my assistant today that I was going to talk to you on the show, she said, "Oh, can you get me an autograph?" I said, "Well, you missed by a week because I saw you last week."
Well, Judge, buy the book, and then
I bought the book.
Then send it over to him. He'll autograph it and send it back. Postmark it for him.
Sure. You see, you're familiar with agents. You know what an agent is. The agent is sitting right across from me right now. He's promoting your book, and you haven't even got to deal with him.
It's all right.
But we thought it would be nice. I thought it would be nice to talk to you.
I'm a big fan of yours, Mr. Chamberlain. Did great work.
Thank you.
Most anybody that I've ever talked about that where you've come up has said nice things about you. And what I was impressed, the public doesn't know, is that you're a very spiritual man. And you have a real sense of the right thing and people and doing things for people and sharing with people. You do it for the right reason, and that most people don't know that because it's nothing that people try to sell. It doesn't sell tickets. It doesn't sell anything. And the bottom line is that's who you are. And I thought it'd be nice for the folks out there in the audience to get a sense of who you really are. So thanks for taking the time to do the show today.
Well, thank you. My pleasure.
I'll send you the link so you can listen to it. See how the guy flubbed. So I could never be an actor. I couldn't flub the lines. Okay, well, anyway, thanks very much, Richard, and we'll talk to you again real soon.
Okay, thanks, sir.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. That's awesome, Judge. It's a great interview.
He happens to be a terrific guy.
Yeah.
I mean,
great actor, too.
We had mutual friends, and he's always been the gentleman. You could have the conversation with him just like we just did anywhere. He has no pretenses.
That's awesome.
Nice man.
All right. We're going to take a break.
Okay. After the commercial, we'll talk about something else.
I guess we have to.
I want to talk about the porn star. Transition.
That may not be happening.
Did you ever meet a lawyer that was for the people? Someone who had the best interests of the people at heart? Herb Dodell has been a lawyer for more than 50 years and has been a Superior Court judge for 9 years, having presided over more than 9,000 cases. In this show, he will reveal the secrets of how things really work in the legal system, so you can maximize your position and benefit most when you're in trouble and need someone on your side to simplify the process for you. For more information, email the judge at askjudgeherb@gmail.com. That's askjudgeherb@gmail.com.
Okay, we're into diversity, right? We're trying to do something different every week.
They're a great interview, Judge.
Oh, thank you. Even though we didn't get too much into the legal issues involving agents and managers, I can tell you that the most difficult part of a negotiation, other than the credits, deals with the distribution of net profits. And when you're a startup person, you don't have much leverage. So in the 32 pictures that I was involved with at Warner's, I think only one hit profits. One. The Wild Bunch was one.
Oh, the Wild Bunch?
Yeah, that one hit profits. But we had made a deal with the producer, which he never forgave me for. We cross-collateralized, which means he had a two-picture deal. And the arrangement was that the profits from either of them, if they hit profits, would be applied against any losses that were sustained in the other movie. And there were two movies in there. The second movie lost money.
Yeah.
We made sure of that.
Right? So you could write it off.
We actually did. And
I know.
And the producer never forgave me for it. He was pissed off when he realized that basically he was never going to see anything from his hit picture. But that's the way it worked.
Wow.
And that's exactly where. And we used to have something called indirect advertising. I don't know if they're still in contracts today. I haven't seen one of those contracts in a long time. And remember, I did a lot of music too. Mm-hmm. I represented people in Motown who were Motown artists, and so I saw it from the music side too. They would write off all kinds of expenses against royalties. or against whatever you were supposed to get.
Yeah, so
and that's why I ended up taking Berry Gordy's deposition in a case, actually.
Yeah, that's when like when movies tank, they can write that whole thing off, right?
They did.
They do. I'm sure they still do, Judge.
Oh, and there were ways dealing with foreign money, too. You think foreign money came in rupees? I mean, you saw no money. Foreign money was gone.
Pesos.
Gone. But that's the way it worked, net profits. And I used to call it indirect advertising, right? Somebody once said to me, what's indirect advertising? I said, I don't know. It's indirect. We took it off, 5%. 5% of the gross income went for indirect advertising. It was basically a rip.
So who's getting that money? Who's getting that money?
The studio.
The studio's getting the money.
Sure.
Okay. Not the director, producer, anything.
But it's a crazy business. I'll never forget this. There's another true story. We used to have a meeting on Wednesdays. We used to go on Wednesday at the movies. There was the head of the literary department, business affairs, the head of the studio, to decide what projects that we're going to do. Right?
They're in green light.
Right. And so we had a meeting, and there was I think he's dead now, so maybe I can mention his name.
Better make sure he is. You want me to Google him?
Well, whatever it was, is he had 4 straight stiffs for a big-time production company, for one of the big studios, Paramount, actually it was.
Mm-hmm.
And 4 straight $20 million losses.
Wow.
And he had a new project that he was pitching Warner's. And they were talking about it and whatever. And I remember being a young whippersnapper type guy. I remember I was only in my 20s. And I said, the guy just lost $80 million for these people. Why do we want to be online for more?
Another $20 million.
And somebody at the meeting said, he's got a track record.
Of crappy movies.
But he had a track record. It was a name. Look, we made film deals with the guys because they used to play baseball in Hyde Park in London with one of the guys at the studio. It was all very nepotistic.
Well, it still is, I think.
It's same thing in the music business.
Yeah.
It's exact same thing in the music business. But today I think it's a lot different because of the social media.
You think so?
Those days, if somebody wanted to work in film, they had like a half a dozen studios to go to. You had Paramount, you had Warner's, you had MGM, you had Universal, you had 6 or so, Columbia, you had 6 or so companies. And if you got turned down by the 6 of them, you were basically done. There wasn't any place to go. Independent productions, even though they took place, were rare because it was a horrible investment. Anybody would come to me when I went into private practice and wanted to invest in a movie, I said, take the money, rip it up, and throw it in the toilet because that's where it's going.
Yeah.
The chances of you making any money on a studio deal, slim and none. If you want to go in and throw the money away so you can write it off for your taxes, because you could do that as an investment.
Right.
Go ahead and do it, but you ain't going to see any money out of this thing in the end of the day, except later on, it turned out that some of these independents had runaways.
Yeah. Well, I was in a couple of independent movies. I actually shot in New York, 3 of them. They actually flew me out and did all this, but they never saw the light of day. And lo and behold, the producer basically just used it, and they all used it as tax write-offs.
A lot of them did it. There was a guy that owned a lot of shopping malls. I forgot, he was one of the major shopping mall guys in the country. And he wanted to be in showbiz so he could come be executive producer, which, by the way, means nothing.
Nothing. Except for you're paying for it.
That's what it means. You know nothing, but you get your name on the film.
You get to kiss some butt on set and be the big shot.
Yeah, that's exactly. He knew that he was never going to see any money back, but he didn't care. Yeah. To him, he could go to the parties and get invited, and to him, it was a big ego number.
Well, that's what it is.
For the independents, rarely did you make a deal. They had what they call pickups, where you could make the movie, then you peddle it. You put it under your arm, and you go from place to place to try to sell it to the distributors, they'd be the second group that would steal from you. The distributors would write off all of these expenses that they took off. So in addition to the distribution fee, which was usually about 30%,
right?
You take the distribution fees off, everything, and then the rest of the expenses, there was nothing left. So the independents, if you spent $3 million on a movie and you try to sell it, Maybe you could get some front money. Maybe you couldn't. Maybe you could defer payments until the movie was out. We used to call those deferred pickups. In other words, you didn't pay for the movie right then and there. You had a chance to exploit it. And we would do that. We would buy a movie, and we would exploit it for a period of time, made our money back, and then paid for the movie later at the end of the day. So we really had no upfront, we had minimal amount of upfront expenses because we didn't have to pay for it until the money was earned.
You have to produce it. Yeah.
And then there was something called four walls. Four walls were situations where you'd make special deals with exhibitors. Like the Mann movie theaters chains, they would provide it, and you'd show those movies in those theaters only.
Right.
That was called a four wall. There were lots of different ways of dealing with this, but a lot of it was controlled by unions, the crafts, the guilds, and whatever.
Mafia.
Labor relations. I'm sure there was some of that too.
Of course.
But labor relations was a very important thing. That was one of my functions at the studio, was to supervise labor relations. So I was on the negotiating team for whenever the collective bargaining came up. And there was a lot of padding in there too.
That's awesome.
You want to make a movie, you got to make a deal with the union.
With you.
Not with me. I was just working there.
I know, I'm kidding. But nowadays it's all these independent movies. You got all these different. Even they're getting nominated for Academy Awards and things like that.
Well, it's
shown on
day.
Netflix.
Well, that's a whole new dimension.
Yeah.
You got a Netflix and you got an Amazon and and even the TV Showtimes and whatever. They really invaded a province which was pretty exclusive for a long, long time.
Yeah.
I mean, when I first started working at the studio, the old moguls was still around. I used to sit and talk to Jack Warner.
Wow.
Jack Warner had nothing to do. They were not making any more deals with him. He had an office there that they gave him, but he was just a guy hanging out. And he had been a giant.
How was his casting couch?
I think he was too old for the couch. I think he was sitting in easy chairs those days. I think the couch moved into an easy chair. But in his office, his desk was elevated. In other words, there were two steps, and if you walked into the office, it was flat. Then you have to be on like a podium.
Mm-hmm.
On the part of the floor was where he had his desk. He was like the king.
Right. And
his chair was his big chair in the middle. But I had such a good time talking to him because I was learning what the movie business was all about. And he had nothing else to do.
A legend. I mean, a legend.
He truly had nothing else to do.
Wow.
He was a nice man.
Yeah.
But they pushed him over to the corner.
Well, they push everybody out, don't they?
That's the stories for another day.
Yeah.
I didn't intend the show to be a reminiscence of my days at the studio.
It was great.
It turns out that's what we ended up doing today.
Well, why not? I think it was great.
Personal. It's all personal.
Well, that's why you do the show. It's diverse. It was great. It was a great show.
I do the show because I want to try to do something different and give the people a perspective. Doing this whole thing about the show business thing today was just to give people a perspective. If they've never known what it's like from the inside, this is like it was from the inside.
Like the old days.
The day. It was good.
It was great.
I was a kid. It was great.
You're lucky. And
you know how I got it? It was because my boss got sick. And he was bedridden for 6 months, and there was nobody to run the place. So I was the only one. I had a law degree and everything else, and so they gave me all this responsibility. But I was a kid.
No, you lucked out. You got your break.
Great experience.
All right, Judge. Great show.
Okay, we'll see you next week.
Hey, what was the
porn star? Maybe next week.
No porn star.
Maybe Roger Stone again. Who knows?
Maybe Roger Stone. What was the name of Richard Chamberlain's book?
Shattered Love.
Shattered Love.
Right.
I'm sure you pick it up on Amazon.
Oh yeah, I bought it from Amazon. I think when I bought it.
Okay, cool. I just want to give him a plug, and also get the Judge's book From the Trench to the Bench available on Amazon.com.
And if you want to know more, you want to schmooze, get in touch with me. It's AskJudgeHerb@gmail.com.
All right.
Is that right, Gary?
Yeah, gmail.com. AskJudgeHerb@gmail.com. We got to go.
Okay, bye.
KCAA Loma Linda, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM, and now 102.7